Okay, so today we're going to take a deep dive into something that's really interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a piece of guidance that I think a lot of people are going to find pretty thought-provoking.
Definitely.
So we're working with this quote today, and it says, "You can't get rich taking advice from broke people.
Right.
If they haven't done it, don't listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
Seek mentors, not opinions."
Yeah, it really
Cuts to the
gave
chase, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So the deep dive today is really all about what is this statement actually saying?
Right.
And what are some of the takeaways that we can apply to our own lives and, when we think about seeking guidance?
Absolutely.
So where do you want to jump in with this?
Well, I think the first thing that grabs you is just how blunt it is,
Right.
It's really telling you to think hard about where you're getting your advice from.
Yeah.
Like it's saying, hey, if you want to achieve something, especially something like financial success,
Mm-hmm.
you need to learn from people who have actually done it.
Not just people who talk about it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Experience matters more than just theory. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So-
Sure. So let's dig into that a little bit,
Yeah.
because the quote is specifically calling out the difference between advice and opinions.
Right.
It's saying we should be looking for mentors,
Yeah.
not just general opinions.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the core difference there when it comes to getting actual results?
Well, I think it comes down to this. Opinions, they're usually based on what someone thinks might work.
Right.
Like what they've heard or read, maybe even.
Right.
But mentorship in this context, like what we're talking about here,
Right.
means you're learning from someone who's actually been there and done that.
Right.
They can tell you what works, what doesn't, and most importantly, why.
Hmm.
And that's all based on real world experience, not just, theories or ideas.
So going beyond that,
Mhm.
what are some of the ways that advice from someone without that experience
Yeah.
could actually like hold someone back or even send them in the wrong direction?
I think the biggest risk is being misled,
Hmm?
Like if you're trying to build a business, for example, and you're getting advice from someone who's never actually done that.
Okay.
They might give you advice that sounds good in theory, but it might completely miss some crucial practical details,
Right.
things they wouldn't know about because they haven't actually faced those challenges themselves.
Yeah.
It's like trying to climb Mount Everest,
Yeah.
and all your advice is coming from someone who's only ever climbed a hill in their backyard.
Right.
The basics might be similar, but the real challenges, the things that make or break you on Everest,
Yeah.
those are things they just wouldn't know about.
They wouldn't have that experience to
Exactly.
share with you.
Exactly.
And so this kind of leads us directly to this idea of mentorship then.
Yeah.
It's not just about finding someone who's older or more senior in a company or something.
Right.
It's about finding someone who's actually reached the specific goal that you're after, right?
Exactly. I
Yeah.
think that's a key point. A true mentor in this sense is like a living blueprint,
Yeah.
They've not only reached the destination, but they can also show you the map they used.
Yeah.
They can tell you about the turns they took, the shortcuts, they found the dead ends to avoid.
Right.
And that's what makes it so valuable. You're learning from someone who has a proven track record.
Now let's flip this around a little bit, because the quote is very direct.
Right.
Are there any situations where perspectives from people who haven't made it, quote unquote, in the way the source is talking about could still be valuable or helpful?
Yeah, I think that's an important point to consider.
Okay.
Sometimes someone who's a little bit further ahead of you on the same path
Hmm.
can offer really valuable support or even just practical tips for the early stages.
Yeah.
They might understand the challenges you're facing right now in a way that someone who's much further along might not.
Makes sense.
And sometimes even someone who's tried and failed
Yeah.
can offer insights into what not to do.
Right. Avoiding those pitfalls.
Exactly. Although it's important to remember that their advice is still coming from a place of not having ultimately succeeded. So the key is to balance those perspectives.
Right.
Take them in, but always weigh them against the guidance of someone who's actually achieved what you're aiming for.
Right. So for everyone listening, thinking about their own goals and ambitions, what would you say is the big takeaway here?
I think the most important thing is to be really clear on what you want to achieve, like really specific.
Okay.
And once you know that you need to actively seek out people who've already done it,
Yeah.
look at their track record, see how they got there.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for guidance.
Right.
But focus on their experience and their strategies, not just general advice.
Okay, so boiling it all down, the core message here is about really paying attention to who you're listening to,
Yeah,
especially when it comes to your biggest goals and dreams.
absolutely.
Prioritize learning from people who have the results that you're after, not just people who have opinions about how to get there.
It's about choosing to learn from a successfully executed journey, you know?
Mhm.
Not just well-meaning speculation.
And on that note, a final thought for everyone listening, take a moment today to think about the advice that you've been given lately.
Yeah.
Does it come from someone who's where you want to be?
Mm.
This isn't about dismissing everyone's opinions,
Right.
but it's about being strategic about whose voice you amplify
Yeah.
in your own journey toward your goals.
I like that.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
You too.
Bye.